And coming up next, we have Rodolfo Vieira taking on Armen Petrosyan. Vieira here is a Brazilian jiu-jitsu background. So he's got a 9-2 record with 8 subs to prove that he has that BJJ background. He's got one submission loss, one decision loss, but then one knockout finish to his name to round out that 9th victory. 2 wins in 2020 and 2019 with the UFC are no longer in the promotion, and he has losses to Anthony Hernandez and Chris Curtis. I feel like his 2 wins were against a bit overrated competition. I'm interested to see how you feel about that too, with Stoltzfus and Brundage. But for Petrosyan, he's got that Muay Thai background, so it is quite the clash of styles in this bout, which is going to be really exciting. 8-2 record with 5 KOs, 3 decision wins, and then he's got 1 knockout loss as well as 1 decision loss. I think he's got a lot more impressive of a resume than Vieira does, where he's got wins over G-Rod, AJ Dobson, Chris Duncan, and then that 1 loss against Caio Baralho, which is kind of funny because Caio Baralho fights next on this card. So stay tuned with us. We'll preview that as well. I think that this fight comes down to if Petrosyan can stifle the takedowns and piece up Vieira on the feet. I just don't know if he can or not, because I think that's a really tall task with how talented Vieira is and how much of a submission king that he is. And that's like such a historically, I feel like such the difference maker when you put a jiu-jitsu guy against a Muay Thai guy, or even just a jiu-jitsu guy against a striker in general. What are you seeing with this one where you feel like we can maybe find an angle? Because the betting odds on this are pretty much at a pick'em at most books, where it's -110 both ways, which is not, you don't see that very often in the UFC, which is exciting.
Yeah, I mean, I think that there's a reason. This is one of the few fights it's a pick'em, and I think that for every reason, it's justifiably a pick'em. I mean, it is the biggest clash of styles you can imagine. I mean, Petrosyan is that world-class Muay Thai, and he's one of the best Muay Thai fighters in the world, and he's going up against one of the best BJJ specialists in the world. So, I mean, you have a natural, like, who is going to get the edge? Can Petrosyan keep on the feet? Can Vieira get it to the ground? And if you're questioning whether or not he's one of the best BJJ black belts in the world, here is, if you can see it, his picture on Tapology, which is not a UFC picture. That is BJJ competition. Like he is a competition BJJ guy, and I think that end of the day, he's going to be able to get to Petrosyan. Now, Petrosyan, to your point, he's fought a couple overrated guys. Is that who were you talking about, Petrosyan or Vieira?
I think Vieira's wins over Stoltzfus and Brundage were a bit overrated. Like I don't have as much respect for Brundage and Stoltzfus as I do for Petrosyan's victories, which came against AJ Dobson, G-Rod, and Chris Duncan.
Gotcha. Yeah, and I disagree somewhat there. I don't respect Stoltzfus much. I do respect some of what Cody Brundage can do in the challenge that he could pose to Vieira a little bit more than Petrosyan. And AJ Dobson to me is he's solid. He's waning a little bit. The Gregory Rodriguez fight is Gregory Rodriguez, and then Christian Leroy Duncan is he's all right. But either way, regardless, neither of them have faced the top ranked fighters, phenomenal fighters, other than that Gregory Rodriguez fight largely. And I think that at the end of the day, that we'll end up seeing Vieira be able to get to Petrosyan. And he is just so unbelievably slippery on the ground that even though he will get dropped, which he more than likely could in this fight, I think that he could end up trapping Petrosyan in a spot that he doesn't want to be in once he gets there. And so I lean towards Vieira. Really, my favorite bet in this fight is for it not to go the distance. I don't think that the clash of styles will cause both to do nothing, which can happen. And say the old Israel Adesanya versus Yoel Romero fight, which was the most boring fight. I do not encourage you to watch it. That or the Carlos Esparza versus Rose Namajunas fight. Yeah, Thug Rose. Sid.
That's mine.
Yeah, right. If we ever talk about, well, I won't say it. But my favorite bet's fight not to go the distance, which is -200. So don't rip it straight. But that's something that you easily and that I would parlay with Fakhretdinov straight. And that's exactly what I'm going to do. You'll get basically even odds there, more or less. Might be -110. But that's your form of an MMA teaser right there. Instead of going with the total at 2 or 1.5, go with the fight not to go the distance. Play it safe. One of these guys is bound to end up either dropping and finishing the other or submitting the other. And I think that that's a pretty safe bet with Fakhretdinov, who's going to avoid punishment the entire time. So I like Vieira to get it done by submission. I'm not going to play that. Just give me him straight. And I'll also go with fight not to go the distance.
Yeah, so I'm going to tell you on that play. I'm not going to endorse it as one of my own, but I will put my money on it and ride that with you. What I am going to do here is I am going to go with the Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu specialist himself, Rodolfo Vieira. I think that just historically, as well as what we've seen in recent history too, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu guys that are that talented and are specialists like that, they find multiple ways to get it done, and they're willing to get hit hard and hit often just to find an angle where they can latch onto you and then take care of business. I think that's what's going to happen here, where especially with the home crowd backing him, he should be able to get the job done. And I'm going to go with -110 here for a unit on Vieira money line. Rick, again, is going to be parlaying the fight not to go the distance at -200 with Fakhretdinov -350. That will get you a parlay somewhere around the even money to -110 range, and he's doing that for a unit as well. Stay with us as we continue to preview, as I hinted earlier, Caio Baralho taking on Abus Magomedov.